March is already upon us. Selection Sunday is tomorrow. A lot of people are trying to get into the college prospects right now. Let me walk you through some of them. This is a first round mock draft pre-March Madness. I'm going to mention some draft comparisons. They're not one-to-one. Just ideas for people to think what these players play like, what their skill set is. At one, we have the Washington Wizards. Got the first overall pick in this. I've been taking Alex Sarr. He's my number one guy on my board. Like similar to Evan Mobley. Guy that has some shot to him. Elite defensive prospect. This guy moves his feet well. He blocks shots. He's an incredible defender, and he's got good size. He's got, decent ball skills for how big he is with a, 7 feet tall, 7'5"-ish wingspan. I think he'll be a great piece for this Wizards team as they're kind of buying into that rebuild. They'll be in like their second year of a true rebuild. He'll be a great defensive piece next to Bilal Coulibaly and Deni Avdija. It's a huge need for them at the center spots with trading away Daniel Gafford. I don't think Marvin Bagley is the long-term center there. A couple of limitations is that he's not have the highest numbers right now. He's coming off the bench in the Australian League. There's some question about whether he's a 4 or a 5. I think he'll be fine either way. The shot isn't great. He's shooting 29%, but he's not reluctant. He has kind of a comfortable, it's not the best mechanical shot, a little out in front of him, but he looks super comfortable taking that shot. He's not really hesitant. It just looks kind of natural to him. So I think this is a huge win for the Wizards getting this pick, having Alex Sarr, center of the future, and he'll be an incredible defender for years to come. 2, we have the Trailblazers jumping up a little bit. The Trailblazers are a team that's almost ready to kind of get out of their rebuild a little bit. I think they've got one more year next year, and then they'll be ready to compete more. They've got great guards in Scoot, Simons, Sharp. So I think we're going to look for more of a forward here, maybe even a big man. I have them taking Cody Williams out of Colorado. Best prospect in college basketball this year, in my opinion. Similar to his brother, Jalen Williams, maybe some Jimmy Butler in him. He's shooting incredibly. 60, 45, 71 splits. He can play defense. He's big. He gets the rim easily. I'm not sure how much the three-pointers will translate to the next level. I don't see him being a 45, 46% high-volume three-point shooter. He's an incredible player. One of the highest upsides in this draft. Big wings that can do it all is what the NBA is about these days. So the Trailblazers can slot him at the 3, maybe even the 4, next to Jeremy Grant, 2 of the guards, and Ayton, something like that. The only downside really is some people aren't sure about him. He's been injured. He wasn't supposed to be this good, but I just think it's too obvious for the Trailblazers here. 3, we have the Detroit Pistons. They get their guy here, I think, in Zachary Risache. Big shooter, kind of similar to Simone Fontecchio, who they traded for from the Jazz this trade deadline. Just another big. I think he's a little smaller than what he's listed at. I think he's more 6'8", 6'9" than 6'10", 6'11". Kind of reminds me of Cam Johnson, Alari Markkanen maybe. Someone that shoots the ball at insanely good. He can play solid defense. Not an elite defender. Kind of a glue guy. Probably won't ever be the number one option, but will be an incredible supporting player. He's got a high ceiling, some high upside. I think he fits well next to that Pistons team, next to Cade, Ivy. Depending on who you like, probably Asar, the 3, he can play next to them because he actually has incredible shooting. Then, Duran, Stewart at the center spot. I think it's time that the Pistons can actually start living up to some of their potential because they've got enough talent on that team to be better than they are. Yeah, this is a dream outcome. If I'm the Pistons, I'm running to the podium to make this pick. 4, another great fit here with the San Antonio Spurs. They're going to take Nikola Topic. It's just too obvious. They need a point guard. He is kind of like a bigger Tyus Jones. He doesn't turn the ball over a ton. He makes great reads, great passes. The 3-point percentage is a little lower than you want it to be, but the free throw percentage is there at 88%. He's got good touch, so I'm not really worried about that 3-pointer percentage. Him next to Wembanyama would be insane. He's a big guard, 6'6", 7-ish foot wingspan. Smart passer, high upside. I just don't see why the Spurs wouldn't take him here. Arguably like a top 2 talent in this draft. Him and Wembanyama will be incredible to watch for years to come. 5, someone I've been high on for a while. Hornets. They need some more defense and size at the forward spot. I anticipate Miles Bridges is going to leave this offseason. I think they need someone to start some defensive identity. I think that's their biggest problem. They could win more games if they had the solid defense to get stops, in the fourth quarter or not let teams go on big runs. He kind of reminds me of kind of a Jalen Johnson, that big forward that can play defense. He has, some creation. He can get blocks. He can get steals. He's close to, I think, 3 stocks on the season. He can score. His 3-point percentage is not great. Probably his biggest weakness right now. But if that shot comes along, he'll be an incredible player. He's kind of that. He could even have some, ISO scoring in him, but just as a connector piece, someone that can score inside, finish strong, get rebounds, and play great defense. He'll slot up perfectly that Hornets core. and make them an actually like solid team, solid defensively. At 6, we have the Raptors. Just to note that this pick would be the Spurs if it was at 7. The Raptors and Spurs after that point guard pick, I don't see an obvious need for each team. I think they could both use a backup point guard, and I think they could use a backup big man. I don't see an obvious backup big man, true center, or a true big for either of them here. So I'm taking the best player available that fits some of a need in Rob Dillingham. That can be an off-the-bench electric scorer. Kind of funny for the Raptors because I have him comped to Emmanuel Quickley, and they have Emmanuel Quickley, but he's kind of that shifty guard, kind of similar to Tyrese Maxey, maybe some De'Aaron Fox in him, that finish well at the rim. They're electric when they play. Their shots kind of on and off, but when it's on, they'll make incredible shots. He can pass the ball well. Not really elite creation at the collegiate level. He's not really playing a pure point guard there, but the splits are there at 48, 45, 75. I think he's the most electric player at college basketball, and I think either team would be happy to have him as an off-the-bench point guard, scorer, kind of instant offense that will project to be a starter one day. 7, we have the Grizzlies here, who I'm excited for because I think they can take a guy right here that can actually make their rotation, and they can get back to that top end of the playoffs they were in a couple of years ago. Obviously an injury-riddled season this year, but I do think there's still some holes in that team. I don't love the core or the guard rotation of Ja, Bane, and Smart. I don't love Zaire Williams that much. Obviously, they've had like G.G. Jackson, like Vince Williams Jr., but I want to take someone who's a little bigger, more defensive-minded, kind of a safer pick here. One that I'm huge on, that I don't see. I'm seeing like more towards the 20s right now. That's Tyler Smith out of the G League. I don't get why he's falling so much in mock drafts. I mean, he's 6'10", 7+ wingspan. He scores, he rebounds, he's shooting like 38% from 3. He's got good touch. I just don't see how every team wouldn't want him. I have him comped to like a lesser version of Jabari Smith Jr. when he's coming out of college. Someone that's going to shoot the ball at a good amount. I think he'll thrive in the corners. He'll play good enough defense. He's versatile. I think he can play some 3, honestly. And he's someone that can play that 8th man for the Grizzlies and actually help them get back to the playoffs. He can play next to Triple J. He can play next to other pieces. He'll be an easy player to incorporate in the roster going forward. At 8th, we have the Rockets. This is via the Nets, so it's the next pick that's going to the Rockets. Here, the Rockets have a lot of good developing young pieces. They've got some good veteran pieces. They were really good at the start of the season. They kind of held off after that, kind of around the play-in. They don't really have an obvious need for me. They just got Steven Adams in trade, who hopefully will be healthy next year. Maybe a backup point guard, maybe a different, like more versatile offensive big. Definitely shooting, though. I think they do need some shooting, but just like where are you going to what position are you going to slot him in? Who are they going to play over? So I have them taking a guy that some people have a little higher than this. Another one of the most electric players in basketball this year, Reed Sheppard. Reed's a hard prospect because his advanced stats are crazy. He has a high block rate, and he's shooting amazing, like above 50% from 3. I mean, 53, 52, 83 is crazy. 4 assists, 4 rebounds is also incredible. I'm a little lower. Obviously, he's got some physical limitations. He's a decent athlete, which the wingspan's not quite there. Is he a 1? Is he a 2 of the next level? I'm not sure. He doesn't have the best off-ball movement, or else I'm having him a little higher. Because I don't think he's Steph Curry because he doesn't have that elite off-ball movement. So maybe he's like I have like a better Seth Curry, or maybe like a smaller Grayson Allen, but a little higher upside. I don't know. Either way, the Rockets will love him as like a spacer for that team, for Jalen Green, for Fred, for Şengün, all of their good, talented physical wings they have, and Men Thompson, Tari Eason, Jason Tate, Dylan Brooks. They have a lot of those guys, so I think it will be a good step for them to get an off-the-bench scorer, 3-point shooter, someone that can, fill up the box score. Maybe with those assists and rebounds, he can be something similar to a smaller Podziemski. So I'm really interested to see where he goes. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Rockets here at 8. At number 9, I have the Utah Jazz. They select Ron Holland with this pick. The Jazz need a little more defensive play. They need wing depth. They need elite talent. So they run to the podium to select this pick. Ron Holland, I see shades of RJ Barrett, Jonathan Kuminga, this strong wing forward combo. Not necessarily the best shooter. He actually had a bad shooting season. He was one of the most highly touted prospects of this draft. He's supposed to go top 3. Somewhat disappointing season. He broke his hand or had some hand injury and won't play the rest of the season. If you watch his tape, you watch the way he moves, the way he scores, it's all there. He's got great size. He does a little of everything offensively. He's an elite scorer. The Jazz need high quality wings. They need size. They need defense. They need breakout candidates. He can slot nicely next to Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, maybe come off the bench. Just an obvious pick for the Jazz. They should be super ecstatic for this pick. At 10, the Hawks are a weird team because I feel like there's a decent amount of talent on that team. There's just something not going right. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals a couple years ago and have been relatively disappointing since then. I have them taking kind of a page out of the Heat's book last year, taking Dalton Knecht out of Tennessee. He is ready to play basketball immediately in the NBA. He's torching the collegiate level. He's shooting 48, 40, 76 from the field, 20 points a game. He's ready. The Hawks need players that can play basketball now. He'll slot in perfectly next to Jalen Johnson, either Clint Capella or Onyeka Okongwu. He can play great offense, doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hand. He can provide some ISO scoring. He can catch and shoot. He does a little bit of everything. I know he's white. The man can dunk. I said his comparison is Josh Richardson plus, like a better version. The man can get up. The man can throw it down. He can score from 3 levels. He is elite offensively. The Hawks would love this guy offensively. At 11, I have the Thunder. The Thunder have an obvious need. They need some size. They need some rebounding. They need a better big man to come off the bench. I see some people mocking like Donovan Clingan, maybe even like Yves Missy at this spot. I don't think that's the direction they take. The Thunder like players that can pass, dribble, and shoot. Look at Chet, look at Jay Will, they're big men. These are guys that are not traditional. They're not necessarily like one-dimensional. They can dribble, pass, and shoot. Obviously, Chet's high end of that. So I have them taking De'Ron Holmes out of Dayton. This is a guy I'm super high on. Other people don't have him this high, but man, he is tearing up college basketball. I've been saying that a lot, but I mean, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2.5 assists. He's shooting 55% from the field, 37% from 3 on like 3 attempts a game, 2 attempts a game. He can shoot. He's a real legit shooter. Okay? This man is going to be able to shoot at the NBA level. He can block shots. He can dribble the ball. He can play basketball. The Thunder like people that can play basketball. He can fill in on Chet's sets. He doesn't really have a glaring weakness. He's not quite the shot blocker Chet is. Kind of the reason he's not higher on boards is because he didn't measure the best. Last year, he measured like 6'9" and a quarter without shoes. He's relatively the same size as guys like Day'Ron Sharpe, though, Onyeka Okongwu, Nick Claxton. Like, yes, he's not a traditional center. He's not a traditional big man. He's not going to be able to lock up, Jokic or Embiid or these bruisers or anything or these big guys. But he can play basketball. He's what the Thunder's looking for. I just don't understand how he's not in the first round, even the lottery in some drafts. I mean, I could see De'Ron Holmes fitting what they want, and I have them taking him here. All right, at 12, I've got the Bulls. The Bulls are in a weird spot with the whole Levine thing, rumors on the DeMar extension. They started the year really bad. They've been playing better. Kobe White's been having a breakout season. Some of their draft picks have been disappointing. I mean, Patrick Williams is fine. He's good. Dalen Terry is fine. He hasn't really had a chance, but with the 17th pick, he's not doing as much as I hoped he would. I was kind of high on him, more in like the late first to second round, but I still like him as a player, as a person. So I have them taking a higher upside guy here, Stephon Castle. I'm not sold on him because I'm not sure what position he'll play, whether it's the 1 or the 2 at the NBA level. If he's not an elite scorer, elite defender, his shot's not great. So I don't know how he's going to get like consistent starter minutes on a team, but he has incredible athleticism, good size. He's a pretty good passer, and he'll fit well next to Kobe White and the other Bulls players. That's why I don't have them taking Jacoby Walter here, just because I think he makes more sense for the Bulls at a relatively similar ceiling level. He's a bigger player. The Bulls need talent. They need upside. He's got talent. He's got upsides. He's got size. They roll the dice here. Take a high upside guy. At 13, I have the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers are still not really constructed as a team still. There's a lot of ways they can go. They've got some core players. I had them taking Cody Williams earlier in the draft, so that kind of puts him more as a 3-4 next to those guys. So you want a kind of 4-5, a bigger forward here. Maybe wants a little better shooter than Cody. I mean, Cody's a good shooter, but he's not going to be a high volume shooter. So I had them taking, I'm going to murder this, Tidjane Saloon. He's a French player. He's kind of like Risa Sher, but a little bit bigger, a little more of a big, and a little less high upside. He's also shooting the ball not as well as he was before. I'm not sure if I love this pick anymore. Been kind of sliding down my board a little bit, sliding down a bunch of boards a little bit. I mean, you can't teach size. his stroke's good, just the numbers going down. I mean, you think he's be fine. I have him kind of compared to a Michael Porter Jr. It's not a one-to-one comparison again. Big forward, you can shoot the ball well, he can rebound the ball. He's a legit 6'10". The Blazers need more size and shooting as kind of complementary pieces to their guys. Easy pick, not super complicated. At 14, so I have them taking or filling out two of their smaller weaknesses that are still kind of easy and obvious. First off, a better defensive big man. Valanciunas has sparked some conversation on how good he is. We're not looking for a starting center here. We're looking for a backup center. Someone that will be great next to Zion and Ingram, if Ingram's there next year, but great next to Zion. So I think you need either a really good defender or a really good shooter or a backup point guard. I love Jose Alvarado. He's high energy. I don't think you want him to be your go-to guy in a playoff game. There's specific situations for Jose Alvarado. He's not getting better. They need a guy that can really pass the ball, really create, an average point guard that can kind of do everything isn't going to cut it. Someone who can play now and also isn't a liability from three-point land. So I'm taking Tyler Kolek out of Marquette. I have him projected as a lower-end Mike Conley, where he doesn't shoot the ball a ton, but when he does shoot it, he goes in. He's almost shooting 50, 40, 90. A little bit off that, but close. He's averaging 7.8 assists a game. 50, 40, 90, 7.8 assists. I don't understand how it's not an NBA guy. I mean, yes, he's not the tallest guy, not the biggest guy, doesn't shoot that many threes, but he shoots a fine enough amount. I think he'll make Zion's life so much easier during bench units. He can really make sure that the offense doesn't stagnate like it does sometimes. And he can be a true creator for this team. I'm super high on him. I think the Pelicans love him. He'll be a seamless fit. 15, Orlando Magic. Need another guard, I think. One with a higher offensive upside that should either be elite shot making or elite creation. So I have them taking Jacoby Walter here, kind of similar to a Benedict Mathurin, maybe a smaller Chris Middleton. He's not been the most efficient this year, so it's not my favorite pick. Depends how he shoots the ball in the NBA, especially next year, to see where he'll fit on this Magic squad. Has a similar range to Keontae George last year, who went 16. Some people have him higher. I think he's a good prospect, but you have to find the right fit around him, in my opinion. He's a really good ISO scorer. He's a nice pull-up jumper. He can get to his spots. He can make something out of nothing a little bit. He's got a really high upside, which the Magic need. Fultz, Black, Howard, Anthony, Suggs, they're good players, a lot of them. The shooting isn't where I want it on a lot of them and I think they could use more shot making and elite upside, which I think Walter may have the highest upside out of all those guys offensively. Assist numbers aren't great. His shooting numbers or shooting splits aren't great either. They don't necessarily need this 15 pick to be incredible. I don't think you're going to get an incredible starter immediately from this pick. So if they really want to make a splash for a guard, that'd probably be a trade or free agency. So Walter's a pretty good pickup for them right here. Fits their timeline, fits some of their needs, but isn't perfect. At 16, we have the Miami Heat. Obviously, last year they had a huge turnout in Jaime Jaquez Jr., who was kind of thought to be the steal of the draft. I personally wasn't that high on him, but I've been really impressed with his play. Some of his numbers have dwindled a little bit, but he's still really solid. He's a quality starter already. It's tricky because the Heat don't really need anything, but they need a lot at the same time. People just show up and play good a lot of the time, or sometimes everyone shows up and they don't play good. I think one element they could use is another backup big that could back up or play next to Bam. So I have them taking Kyle Filipowski out of Duke. This might be kind of racist, but I have him as a better version of Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber. He kind of can shoot, he can defend the rim, he can pass a little bit, he has some creation, he rebounds the ball well. So I think he's going to be a serviceable shooter at the next level. I don't think he's ever going to be elite, like 38% on high volume or anything like that. I think he's a fine defender of the rim. He's not an elite defender, but I think he's got a little bit better. He makes a lot of sense for the Heat. He can play next to or back up Bam because he can shoot, pass, protect the rim, the 4, the 5. Not a huge upside guy. I think he'll be fine in the next level. But yeah, it's kind of hard to project what the Heat are going to do. Kind of think they'll do something similar to last year. 17, we have the Raptors. The Raptors, like I said, are kind of in the middle of a retool, rebuild. I had taken a guard earlier, so I want to take a piece here that will be a big and more of a defensive one. Hopefully something that can kind of juxtapose what the other bigs like Pirtle, they just re-signed Kelly Olynyk, so something that can be different from them but also provide value. So I've been taking Yves Missi. He's an incredible shot blocker. He's got huge wingspan. His per 36 blocks are 2.6, which is crazy. I kind of see him as like a Rob Williams, Jared Allen type of guy where he isn't one-dimensional where he has to be a drop big.
I wouldn't want him switching long term, like for like possessions at a time or anything. But he can guard slightly a little bit in isolation, and he's a great shot blocker. He's a little raw offensively, but him next to Scotty would be incredible defensively. They can become anchors for that team going forward. He's pretty much your typical huge wingspan, huge athlete that can block shots, a little bit raw offensively. I think he'd be a great pickup for this Raptors team who could use another big in their rotation. At 18, we have the Atlanta Hawks again. This is the Kings pick. So here I have them looking for a guy who brings an elite skill already. I think they could also use some more versatility and like elite defense. So I'm thinking Ryan Dunn. He's another prospect who's been going up and down different people's boards because there's an obvious weakness in his shot. I mean, he has made 1 3-pointer since January 24th. He is an incredible defender. I mean, he is Herb Jones, OG Anunoby, Matisse Thybulle level elite defense. He's averaging 2.3 blocks, 1.3 steals. I mean, that's insane. He's good on ball and off ball. He has good athleticism. He has some wild putbacks and posters. He has great defensive reactions, instinct. He's an incredible defender, but he can't shoot the ball perfectly for the Hawks because he can come off the bench, play defense, lock up the other team's best player, or at least bench player. But yeah, I think he's a guy that the Hawks could benefit from a ton because of his elite already defense. At 19, we have the New York Knicks. The Knicks are hard because they have a lot of guys that are going to be free agents, like Alec Burks, Bogdanovich, and they don't have a ton of holes. They're one of the deeper teams in the league again. It will be interesting to see if they re-sign or if they can re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein this offseason, a free agent who's had a pretty good year after Mitchell Robinson went out. Really raw guys or really ready guys. So I have them taking someone who can play the backup big and be a little different than the ones they have in PJ Hall. I have him compared to sort of a less physical Aaron Gordon. He's got some Kevin Love in him. He can shoot. He's an underrated passer. He has flashes of incredible reads, honestly. There's one one-handed rebound pass that was insane he did earlier in the year. He can shoot the ball decently well. I'm a big believer in his touch and his shot. I think he will bounce back up to 35% at the next level. He's become a better defender where he can provide rim protection at this point in his career. I'm not sure if that will translate because he's not an incredible athlete. He's got decent size and wingspan, but it's not incredible. So that'll be interesting to monitor. But he's different than, Mitchell, Hartenstein, Sims, Achua, that he's actually provides versatility. He can play the 4 and 5. He can space the floor. He does a little bit of everything, like I've been saying for a lot of these guys. He just doesn't have the biggest upside. I don't think he's going to get much better than he is right now. And if his shot doesn't translate and he's shooting 30% or less from 3, I don't see him providing that much value. But like I said, I'm a big believer in the shot. I think he'll be able to play next to their bigs. He can play next to Julius Randle as a 5 sometimes. So yeah, I'm not sure it's that big of a deal for the Knicks. They could easily trade this pick. Yes, it is. It is the Mavs pick. But yeah, they could trade it once again and try and, they could try and get like a more veteran type player for next year. So we'll see.
All right, at 20, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. Now we're going to be taking someone that they could use another center, but they already like Paul Reed. They've got Mo Bamba, who's a free agent, I think. Couple different ways they could go. Here I have them taking a guy that can play now, but has a bigger upside, a higher ceiling, and that's Keyshawn George. He's kind of similar to like a big wing that can shoot, kind of like a lesser version of Paul George, maybe like Jet Howard from last year's draft. Catch and shoot. He's big. He can play solid enough defense. He's going to be pretty efficient. He can play a lesser role now, but you can kind of grow him and get some touches on ball so that he can progress into some sort of star outcome. I think the only thing is that if he doesn't hit, you kind of just got a big shooter. I think it makes sense for the 76ers. They can get some more depth, some more shooting, some more size. Simple as that. At 21, we have the Phoenix Suns. Has a really high ceiling in their potential, but they've been kind of struggling. They've been up and down this season for sure. We're going to address the defensive big. Here I have them taking someone I'm a little lower on than other people. That's Donovan Clingan, absolute unit. He is huge. He's 7'2", incredible wingspan, something like 7'7". He blocks shots, he rebounds the ball, and he scores. He's gonna do what you ask him to do. He's gonna block shots, protect the rim, get rebounds, high energy, perfect big next to Nurkic, and he's gonna provide that much needed rim protection. He can come in and play his role right now. I think it just makes too much sense for the Suns, who are in desperate need of size. At 22, I have my Pelicans up again. Now we're gonna address that kind of more versatile defensive big. There's a really obvious choice at this point in the draft, and that's Kelly Ware. I see kind of like a longer Chris Boucher, bigger, taller, a little longer Miles Turner, but a little skinnier. Is skinny for his size, but I think he's a true center. Huge wingspan, and I think he'll put on some weight as he gets in the league a little bit. I don't think he's going to be like super beefy and strong, but I think he'll be able to hold his own at least enough against some of the bigger centers in the league. He's shooting 44% from 3 on 1.4 attempts a game. So the shot looks pretty real. He's had some incredible performances lately. I mean, he's putting up like almost 30 points, tons of rebounds, games with 5 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks. He's a good defender. He's good in isolation. He's a good shot blocker. I think he'll be perfect next to Zion. If I'm the Pelicans, I run to the podium at this spot to take Kelly Ware. At 23, we have the New York Knicks again. I have him taking a similar vein player as before. We went to the big last time. So now we're going to take another, older college guy that can play immediately. I'm taking Kevin McCullough out of Kansas. He slid down my board a little bit as of recently, but I mean, this guy just fills out the box score. 19 points, 4.4 assists, 6 rebounds. I have him comped to kind of a bigger Josh Hart. I mean, he can do it all. He rebounds well for his size. He's going to provide a little bit of insurance in case Bogdanovich or Alec Burks leaves in the offseason, who are on the last years of their deals. Isn't elite at any one thing, in my opinion. This might not matter. The Knicks could easily trade this pick once again, but I think Kevin McCullough makes a lot of sense if they do keep the pick. 24 is another really hard pick for me, the Bucks, because Doc Rivers hasn't played their young guys like at all this year. And I think they need some big man depth next to Brook Lopez. Getting a little older, they traded Robin Lopez. They're looking a little thin in their front court as far as bigs go. There's no obvious center fit here for me, so I'm taking someone a little smaller that's not quite a big in Tristan Da Silva, who reminds me of Nick Batum. He's kind of a big forward that is kind of that Swiss Army knife. He plays solid enough defense. He can pass the ball a little bit. He scores. He can rebound. And he's shooting almost 38% from 3 as of recently. I think he'll be a great fit next to Giannis. He makes more sense than other guys, and he's a little older, a little more experienced, so maybe Doc Rivers would actually play him. Where the Bucks are at in their timeline, he just fits. It makes a lot of sense for the Bucks. 25, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have a decently, deep roster. They've got some players cooking in the G League. The one thing I would want from them is to improve on those Dean Wade minutes, maybe. I'm taking someone who's a little raw for their timeline in Kwame Evans Jr. Kind of reminds me of a Jonathan Isaac. Kind of this, not quite a 5, but I mean, he's got elite defense. He blocks a ton of shots. He has some shooting. He's not quite the shot blocker that Jonathan Isaac is, but he's going to play good defense on and off ball. He projects as a decent shooter. His three-pointers have been close to 30% all year, but his free throw percentage is always been 80%, so that's a really good sign to me. I'm a big believer in the free throw percentage. He's going to be able to defend, or he's going to be able to be more of a defensive option off the bench for them, and I mean, it could just be tremendous defensively for them. Depending on how the shot turns out, it could really impact his career, and obviously he might not get minutes for this Cavs team. They could easily trade this pick, but if they do take a pick, I think he makes a lot of sense because of his size, defense, versatility, and some shooting to it. At 26, we have the Nuggets. The Nuggets are a team who are one of the favorites to win the championship, but I do think there's some obvious upgrades for them. I don't know why, but they seem to not like Zeke Naji. They just paid him, but he never plays. They just decided to run Aaron Gordon at the center spot. So I think they're trying to try and find a big they trust more than Zeke Naji here. I have them taking Zach Edey, a giant. I have him compared to a much lesser version of Yao Ming. I mean, dude's huge. He's won multiple, awards every year, player of the year, player of the conference, but it's just hard to project how he's going to turn out the next level if it will translate. A good defender, but he's kind of stationary. It'll be interesting to see how he translates to not be able to just sit in the paint as much just because of the 3-second rule. Just because of his size, he'll be able to make some simple passes at the NBA level from the post. Once again, I'm not sure that they would even play him over Aaron Gordon on the backup center, but I think it would be a good option for them. But obviously the Nuggets don't need that much, but it makes sense for the Nuggets to look at someone like him. 27, we have the Washington Wizards. I haven't taken a high upside swing. Well, let's just get into it. I haven't taken Isaiah Collier out of USC. I'm a little lower on him than some people are. Disappointing season for him and USC. He's had a pretty good last month or so. I have him kind of in the same vein or range as Nick Smith Jr. from last year, who was another highly touted prospect going into the preseason. He kind of reminds me of Devin Vassell a little bit, just the way he plays, the way he operates. He loves getting inside, attacking the rim. He's got really high upside. He's got good strength, good frame. At this point, it's just too much for the Wizards to pass up on. At this point, just makes too much sense for the Wizards. They're ecstatic to get a guy at his talent at 27. 28, we have the Utah Jazz. I just want a high upside guy that has some... At this point, we're looking for some more length, versatility, and shooting. Just be a more supplementary guy here. Johnny Furphy out of Kansas. He's a little lower on my board than other boards because I'm not really sure if he's an elite shooter. Personally think he should stay another year. I think he can solidify himself in the lottery next year. But, I mean, he's got great size. He's a good shooter. He has solid defense, surprisingly. And I think it just makes too much sense for the Jazz. He's got length, versatility, shooting, some defense. I think those are all things that a rebuilding team should look for as they rebuild, similar to the Thunder. I just think that's a really good philosophy. And I think the Jazz, who are looking for more shooting and versatility, more forward depth, wing depth, it makes too much sense, and I think Johnny Furphy could find a really great role on the Jazz. So the Jazz take him here at 28. 29, we have the Timberwolves. I'm super excited about this pick, surprisingly. Timberwolves, with number one seed for a majority of the year this year. They're really expensive next year. They don't have much wiggle room. They just got Mike Conley on a really good deal for the next 2 years, but a 4-year rookie scale, $2, $3, $4 million guy for the next 4 years could be really important to them. So I'm thinking someone who's ready to compete right now. That's Nick Clifford out of Colorado State. Incredible defender. He's shooting the ball at an incredible clip, 40% on around 3 to 4 attempts a game, 81% from the line. He's incredibly physical. He can come in, replace kind of Kyle Anderson a little bit next year. He's a little smaller. He can kind of play the 2 to 3. He's a little small for the 3 in certain lineups where they're running, 2 bigs. You can get away with throwing him at more of a wing. He shot 29% from the 3 last year. It was 40% the year before, but I mean, if he can't shoot, it's really going to put a damper on his productivity at the next level. But he makes so much sense as a 3-and-D guy for this Wolves team and could be an incredible part of their future, honestly, going forward. At 30, we have the Boston Celtics. This is a tricky team because obviously they don't need much. They're the best team in basketball. Someone that could maybe possibly get time over Jordan Walsh in the future because they can shoot threes better than he can. Someone that makes a lot of sense for them right here is Jalen Bridges out of Baylor. I don't understand how people aren't talking about him more. He's a good defender, good shooter, great competitor. He plays both sides of the ball. He's been doing this at Baylor. He has good splits. He scores enough. He rebounds enough. He's not a bad passer. He can dribble the ball. Obviously, the Celtics might go for a more project player, but I think you want to try and capitalize, get as many championships as you can in the next, 2 years. I think the way to do that is get players that are ready now that fit your system. He does that. He'll be a great off-the-bench defender, 3-and-D guy, but I think he just makes so much sense, and he deserves to go in the first round, if you ask me.